Welcome, guys. And I'm excited to say that this is the first week that I'm able to stand for this call again. So I'm very happy about that as well. This week, we're going to talk about something that I am just excited to talk about because I'm excited to rag on it. We're going to have a little burn session on the sugar diet. So, what is the sugar diet? The sugar diet is this new fad diet where people are literally eating mostly sugar, like it sounds like. They're doing it like a sugar fast. They're not doing it every day. Um, and some people have even put out guides to how to do the sugar fast a couple days a week. And a lot of these guys are bragging about how much more full their muscles feel than normal intermittent fasting. Duh, you're not going to deplete. Talking about how much more energy they have than they used to have. They used to do keto. Um, there's just all kinds of insanity with the sugar diet, and I don't think that that is an overstatement at all. Most fad diets end up completely missing the boat somewhere by focusing too much on one thing. And in the case of the sugar diet, one of the things that they really like to talk about is the boost that it gives certain hormones, such as FGF21. FGF21 is a stress hormone. So it's going to help you lose weight faster because it's a catabolic hormone. But that's not the only hormone that it's going to affect. It's activating stress hormones because it perceives a stressful situation. And not all stress is the type of stress that you really want your body to adapt to. Some stuff is just to survive if it has to survive that situation. Um, and that is one of the things that is how I would categorize FGF21 as a stress hormone. It's also going to increase cortisol levels. Um, Overall, you do end up burning more fat with stress hormones going. You also have more energy going when you have these hormones going because it's breaking down that fat for energy because your fight or flight response is basically going. So there's a lot of problems with the liver diet, or sorry, with the sugar diet just in itself. So you're going to have a lot of rapid glucose spikes. Um, that's going to long term desensitize the beta cells. You're going to eventually reach a point where, unless you're handling this with exogenous insulin or something like that, you're not going to be able to not take a hit on your pancreas. And even if you put exogenous insulin in, that doesn't save your beta cells from it. Even if you take some other, you know, type 2 diabetes drug that a lot of people try to take for those purposes, you're not going to necessarily save them either. So there's not a way to hack yourself out of making this a good, you can't hack yourself out of making this a bad health choice. This will never be a good health choice. Um, Aside from that, you're cutting your fat levels down very low during this. And some people that are doing this literally just say, don't worry about it if you're not natural. And that's not the only hormone in the body. That's not the only thing that fats do either. Fats are important for brain health. It's a part of neural tissue. Most of your brain is fat. So as far as short-term effects, we're gonna have high glycemic loads. So you're gonna feel good for a little while, but your body is going to go through a constant crash cycle, or you're going to be consistently having sugar all day long at a steady pace. Um, and either way, your pancreas is going to be working very, very hard. Your liver is going to be working very hard because your liver helps regulate blood sugar as well, right? It stores glycogen. You have glucagon and you have insulin to help control your own blood sugar levels. And of course, this is a little oversimplistic of it, but the final takeaway just in terms of general considerations before we get into trying to hack these different hormones, is you might feel okay because you're giving yourself little boosts of energy with the sugar. So you'll feel okay right after you have the sugar, but it creates a cycle that you have to continually chase all day. Aside from that, the FGF21 itself can also um, impair glucose tolerance because it's trying to keep you in that fight or flight. It's trying to keep your blood sugar high enough that you can run away from something, just like other stress hormones are. It's going to cause mitochondrial stress and it can potentially contribute to fatty liver as well. Um, so overall, it's just short-sighted and reductionist, even if we're talking about applying this. Sometimes, like I said, some people have put out guides to doing this a couple times a week. And then they have these other days where they load back up on the other stuff, like they should be cycling food. Um, and even on those days, they're not having enough protein. Um, the literature is very clear overall when you look at nutrition literature as a big picture. You can cherry pick anything and come up with almost any scenario you want. But when you look at the big picture, the literature is very clear. Eat a lot of protein, eat a lot of nutrient dense foods. Those can be meats, eggs, vegetables, fruits, um, and try to have everything in moderation otherwise. Have enough fats that you can maintain, you know, cognitive health and health of the nervous system. And you have the raw materials for cell membranes, and you have everything you need to build all the hormones you need. Um, but you don't have to overcomplicate this, and there's no real like reason to try to hack this because it's not. And I don't mean this to be, minimize anybody's efforts, but it's not that hard or complicated. It's not hard or complicated. There's no reason that you can't follow something that encourages moderation that is just as easy to follow as doing something like a sugar diet or something like that. Sure, maybe you get to eat candy a couple times a day, and so that seems desirable while you're doing it. But that's not, it seems kind of fun. It's like, oh, you feel like you're getting away with something. You feel like you're hacking something, right? Um, but in reality, you're cutting yourself short and you're selling yourself on a dream. And that's really all that it comes down to. Unless you're on just an ass load of drugs, then there's no way that this is not going to have a negative effect on both your physique and your performance. And even if you are, I still think that it is insane to think that you would not get better results not doing this. And I get that some of you guys are going to come back and say that this was an experiment that they think I'm going to post publicly. Um, however, um, it's a silly experiment to do on yourself. It's got a very predictable outcome in a lot of ways. And it's like the recipes right there in front of you. The literature is not unclear on this stuff. There's a couple basics that you have to stick to with nutrition. And then outside of that, you can really eat, what you want. If you want to eat a high carb diet, you can make it work. If you want to eat a low carb diet, you can make it work. If you want to eat, unless you have very, very specific athletic goals, you have a lot of flexibility with how you can eat healthy and support getting pretty jacked. And um, I notice I didn't say the most jacked you could be or the most jacked person on the planet, but you can get pretty jacked and pretty athletic and do a lot of different things at a pretty good level with a whole lot of flexibility. But there's no reason to do some sort of fad diet, period. Um, they all miss the boat on something because they're focusing so much on one thing that they miss the big picture. And that's really the message here is don't lose sight of the forest for the trees because you found some shiny thing you want to chase like uh, FGF 21. But if you want to lose weight, you want to lose fat, if you want to lean up, and you want to hold on to some muscle and perform pretty well too, as good as you can, it's pretty simple. You have enough fat to support healthy hormone levels and cognitive health, and that's it. And you have your carbs as low as you can have it without feeling like absolute garbage. And you have your protein high enough that you don't lose a lot of muscle more than you have to. And that's it. It's pretty simple. Literature's pretty clear. You have more protein and less of everything else whenever you want to lean up. I don't know why anybody, I get that people want to try new things. I don't get why anybody would take out things that are essential. And we talk about, it was just a couple years ago, people were touting the fact that carbs are the only macronutrient that you don't technically need to survive. And so just because you survive this, not having any of it at all for extended periods of time, referring to the macronutrients that are required to live, doesn't that just seem like that would be unhealthy? Like that would have some sort of negative effect? Doesn't it seem like if enzymes are biologically active proteins and are crucial to the function of nearly everything in your whole body, from digestion to everything, repairing tissues, everything, literally almost every biological process, um, or thinking about the fact that literally genes and gene expression is, you have to attach, you get um, your mRNA codes off of the DNA, tRNA pairs with that, and you have amino acid attached to it. Is that correct? Something attached to it to make an amino acid. Anyways, it's been a while for that particular part. Um, and I'm also just kind of like baffled with the rest of this. But proteins are incredibly important. They're the most biologically crucial macronutrient to have. Fats are also required to maintain the health of the myelin sheath so that you potentiate nerve impulses and you speed up nerve impulses. They can skip along the wire instead of just going straight through. Um, Degradation of the myelin sheath is one of the hallmarks of neurodegenerative disorders. Um, and not having enough healthy fats, or I should say, having enough healthy fats is correlated with brain health. So the takeaway there is to have enough healthy fats. So why would you not do that? And again, I'm not saying that you have to go keto here either. I'm not saying that you have to have all protein and fats. I'm just saying, why don't we apply some common sense to things? It shouldn't really be a war on any. macronutrient. And we don't really need to be cycling. We don't need to be rotating things in and out throughout the week. You can the closest to that that you should potentially get would be what people sometimes call carb cycling, or just common sense. Carbs are one of your main energy sources, so have more of them on days that you're going to train really hard, and less of them on days that you don't. A little bit more on days that are right after a day that you trained really hard, even if you already had a high carb day the day before and aren't training that day. And likewise, if it's a session that you really want to perform well on, you may have more carbs the day before, um, even if you're not training. So I hope this helps people um, sort some of this out, because I know that people can actually get sucked into believing that some of these things are good ideas when they see people misrepresent these ideas. Um, and whenever they show their own quote success with it. And I don't know if these guys are really doing the sugar diet like they say they are. I don't know if they're, laughing when they turn the camera off and eating a steak. Um, I have no clue, to be honest. I don't know if these guys are, on a TRT dose of stuff, or if they're taking, darts the size of cattle syringes. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Um, I can't speak to their authenticity on what they say they're doing, but I can definitely speak to common sense of applied sciences and practical application of the literature, and just common sense interpretations of the literature. And there's nothing in the literature that suggests that this is something that people should apply as a dietary strategy. And just because there's some studies that suggest this will happen with your, you know, stress hormones, and that you can increase fat loss, what it is people saw that it would increase lipogenesis. And um, is it correct? But yeah, it's also going to lipogenesis. It's lipogenesis. Yeah, so when that signal's blunted from overuse, you're going to have lipogenesis, um, which would be the creation of fat. Lipolysis is the breakdown of fat. So I was really mad when I was reading that study to confirm. So FGF21 was actually associated with lipogenesis. How stupid. Um, but aside from that, again, cortisol, you're going to have catecholamines, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. Um, so you can actually end up with some anxiety responses from this too, potentially, if you're prone to that. It depends on the individual's brain chemistry. Um, so you might be wired, but you're also going to feel like tired and stressed at the same time. And that's not really what you're looking for if you're trying to have like a calm, clear mindset. So maybe you know, if your brain chemistry fits that, then maybe that works for you. Um, but that's something you should probably achieve with other methods as well. Thyroid hormones, you're going to have some collateral damage there as well. Um, so chronic cortisol elevation is going to inhibit the conversion of T4 to T3. So that's going to downregulate your TSH. You're going to also um, reduce the luteinizing hormone pulsatility, because of the elevated cortisol plus the unstable insulin. And so that's going to reduce your testosterone levels pretty significantly. Of course, if you're not natural, that doesn't really matter. But um, again, that's not the only thing your testicles produce. not just impacting that, it's also going to impact cognitive health. Um, Growth hormone is blunted by high glucose and insulin as well. And uh, not only is it anabolic during sleep, but it's lipolytic. And so it's kind of counterproductive if you're doing this whole thing to try to hack your body to lose fat, right? So um, it doesn't really just mess with insulin. This really hijacks your whole stress system. Um, so the whole stress axis is thrown off by the sugar diet. There's no, again, this is just like if somebody had the recipe in front of them and they couldn't bake brownies from the box. The literature doesn't suggest that this is a good idea. And if they do it long enough, their experience won't either.